Hello all, this is Dr. Dave Maslach talking to you about reciprocity.com. The E is written with a 3, and in this particular video, I'm going to talk to you about how do you actually determine the reputation of a PhD program. So if you don't know me, I'm an associate professor of innovation strategy and entrepreneurship. And I created this whole reciprocity project to give back as much as I possibly can. There were so many people that helped me out that I wanted to pay the favor forward and help you out as much as I possibly can. So I created this sort of sharing economy editing platform. That's what reciprocity is about. Then I'm doing these YouTube videos to help you make all these decisions that are really tough and difficult that we all go through as academics and research folks. All right, so first of all, how do you actually determine the reputation of a PhD program? So first of all, what is reputation? Well, sociology folks kind of look at status and reputation, and they often discuss it or look at it as how people defer to the organization and recognize the organization, right? So they look to see it whether that particular organization is, legitimate in some sort of way, that they actually have lots of people are actually looking at them and think that they are a really cool organization, right? So that's really what you're looking at with reputation. And there's really two ways that most of us actually make decisions based on the reputation of a PhD program. And this is like everything in life, that this is the way that most people actually do decisions. First of all, there's the optimal or rational choice way of making decisions, right? So this is the rational choice decision-making model. This is where you select the best alternative from available alternatives. There are a set of alternatives that are out there, right? And there's sort of different techniques to do this, and we're taught this in business school in terms of doing that. So you might list out, for example, an Excel spreadsheet, I've told you this before, where you list out the different PhD programs and you rank order them based on different criteria that you would like to do, and then you select based on those criteria the best ones that you would do. Very rational, very engineering-like. It's the way that probably computers might do a lot of the decision-making that they would do, and it's a way that we tend to teach how decision-making should be done. But most people actually do more of a normative way, and this is the way that most people actually make life decisions. And this is totally normal to do life decisions in this way. So how we make decisions, about how we eat, for example, how we save for money, all sorts of life decisions, we do it this way rather than the rational choice way, which is, they're both really good and fine and dandy. And the rational choice way is probably going to get you there a little, more methodologically. But most of us actually just do it based on sort of normative conditions, or looking around, seeing what other people are doing. So I did a quick survey on this YouTube channel, on my community tab. Go check it out. If it should be still up there. And if you can't see it on your iPhone and stuff, just go into the website and go onto a laptop, and you can go check out the different surveys and stuff like that. So within 12 hours, there was 24 people that answered, and this is how they chose their different, or they're planning to make, planning to choose the PhD program that they would like to go to or are part of right now. So the first one, 8% said a school's reputation. 12% said the department's rankings. The school's rankings was 8%. 17% said the publication record of the faculty, and 33% said the personal recommendations, and then the last one, 29% said location, which is totally normal. I was expecting that to happen, that location would be one of the dominant ones, and then personal recommendations was the dominant one as well. So the rankings are actually pretty small if you look at that in terms of how people are making decisions. Now, granted, very small sample size, as well as crazy amounts of sample selection bias on this, but it kind of gives you an idea, because nobody else is doing this on the internet, right, and helping you with these decisions. So first of all, how would I personally actually make decisions now that I have, I've been around the block a little bit longer? And that's the whole genesis of this whole thing that I'm doing, right? A big part of it was because there's nobody that was helping you out and giving you real and frank information out there in terms of making these decisions. So first of all, I would not base my PhD, my life choices based on location. And I often teach that in my classes as well, my undergrad classes, to sort of look more broadly than a specific location. I did that, that's fine. But at the same time, what ends up happening, particularly in a PhD program, and when you do sort of these specialized fields like this, any sort of specialized field, is you're probably going to move in the future. So what ends up happening in a PhD program is you do the PhD program, it's highly unlikely you're going to stay at that program in terms of being faculty at that program. So even if you go to INSEAD, for example, or the Australian Business School or wherever you're going, you go to that particular program, it's highly unlikely you're going to stay there. It's just not the norm, that the way that we actually do this. And there's good reason for that. We want to increase, academics want to increase the amount of sort of cross-pollination of ideas. And so they often get people from other schools, different ranking schools, sort of laterally ranked schools and higher ranked schools. And then they bring them into their faculty. And what that does, it sort of cross-pollinates ideas and encourages more it just creates a sort of a more welcoming atmosphere in academia. So I wouldn't do that in terms of making your life choices. If you're saying, I'm going to go to this particular program because it's close to home, and I want to stay close to home, it's unlikely that you're going to stay close to home. I've seen people do that and they navigated that process, but generally doesn't work out that way in terms of long-term goals. The better recommendation, if you want to do that, to go to a particular location, look at it as like a couple of decades sort of play, right? So you might go to one particular location for a couple of years, and you go to another one and you put in your dues, and then you go back to the location you want to go to. So don't do your PhD program where you want to go. So if you want to go to Chicago, maybe if you went to the University of Chicago or, Stanford or something like that, you would go back to that program. But it's really highly unlikely. It'd be better to go to, if you want to go to Stanford, if you really like that institution, you want to stay in California, go to Harvard. And then once you go to Harvard, you come back and then you can cross-pollinate. And it just works out a little bit better for you that way, because then it sort of reduces that barrier in terms of people saying, I don't want to hire our own. And there are a lot of people that will say that. And it's really the norm in most PhD programs around the world. It's highly unlikely that you're going to sort of stay at that PhD program and become faculty at that school if you go there. So just think about that. The other thing that I would do in terms of thinking about your the reputation of the school, I would look at the faculty publication records, the sort of rankings that they have. They're not the best, and what they are indicating are lagging indicators. So what does that mean is what's happened in the past, and there's usually a long time horizon by the time they actually sort of work out, right? So it might be the publication record, as well as rankings of the schools. They were ranked really high based on efforts that happened, say, 5-10 years ago. And then they're ranked high right now, and then it's sort of a lagging indicator. So personally, what I would do is I would look at, so there's two things I would look at. I would look at the research interests of the faculty, of the people that you're interested in. Just read a couple of their articles, see what they're up to. Find out whether you actually resonate with what they're doing. That's really incredibly important, because you are going to be doing something very similar to what they're doing for years, for decades. It's really tough to go into get that sort of specialized knowledge in something and then switch to something else. So you want to have a jump and sort of like what that faculty that you're planning on working with is doing. So human resources, for example, if you like something to do with human resources, then look to see what people are doing that are doing human resources, right? And see the people that are doing really good things. So I would not look necessarily at rankings and stuff like that. I would use them as sort of I'd weight them just as about as much as what everybody else is ranking them here. It's kind of lower in this sort of, tier of things. I would really look at personal recommendations from high status individuals or people that you really, really trust. Whoever that might be. And I don't know who that's going to be, but I would ask, maybe it's your current faculty, that maybe you're a master's student, an MBA student. Ask around and ask people or ask PhD students where would they go, who do they think are really cool and interesting people, what program is really, really good, and just ask around. People are usually really nice. If you can't find people, just go on LinkedIn. Some people have contacted me on LinkedIn, and that's totally fine. So you want to do that kind of stuff where you just ask around, see what people are doing. Oh, and another sort of, and I should have reiterated this, a third thing that you want to do is look to see where their graduates are going and what they're doing, right? So that's an important indicator as well. What is the performance or outcomes of what they're actually doing, of going to that program of what they're doing, right? So you want to look to see, if I want to go to Stanford, the long run, highly unlikely, great school, love the school. I'm not saying that, don't try for that, but it's just unlikely for most people to go there and be faculty there. I know some faculty there, wonderful individuals. It's really hard to get into. So if you want to go there, then you go to the schools that they graduated from, right? So or the people that are faculty on Stanford, you want to go see where they are doing their PhD and stuff like that. It's not to say it can't be done from other schools. The reason that there is those sort of boundaries, there's two reasons. Expertise is different at those levels. They also have different resources and skills and stuff like that. So resources is money. Basically, at the end of the day, they have a lot of money at those schools, and so they get to do a lot more cooler things. And then the other thing is that you do have kind of a compound effect that happens. So if you go to Stanford, for example, you're going to meet other people that are doing really cool things, and then you can probably interact with them and do personal relationships and actually create papers and stuff. And so you have a compounding effect that happens. Really well-known effect. It's called the Matthew effect. You could check it out. Lots of papers written about it. Cool and interesting stuff. So that's what I would personally do. So the last one is probably the most important, is just look at the personal recommendations of people that you trust. And, the other thing, so find people that you actually trust and ask around. And then the other thing is look to see the personal interests of the different researchers that are around. There's really not a lot of people, if you start narrowing it down, there's not a lot of people that are doing that specific thing that you're interested in. So for example, if you really like applied mathematics, there's probably only a few people in the world that are doing applied mathematics in a specific area on, I don't know, maybe it's something to do with, how bridges vibrate and, resonance and stuff like that. There's going to be only a couple of people in the world that are doing that. And then you narrow it down even further, and there's really only a few people doing, really tiny amount of people doing one particular thing. And you really like that one particular thing about, resonance frequency. So that's how you sort of narrow it down. You look to see whether it's interesting, whether you like it, what they are doing. And then the second thing you want to look to see, it's sort of personal recommendations. And the last thing is you want to kind of look at rankings and stuff like that. All those other things really do matter. And those are, again, they're lagging indicators. One more thing with those lagging indicators, not the fact that they're wrong or bad or anything like that. It's just that it sort of sometimes neglects pockets of really cool and interesting people that are doing cool and interesting things in different locations that you can't pick up very well in those different rankings, right? So, maybe it's a school's ranking is not necessarily low, but there's amazing people that are, one or two really amazing people that are doing research in this particular thing at this one particular school. You don't want to neglect that, right? So, I can think of many different examples where there's like some people that have done really wonderful things of being in a location where you're like, really? That person's there? And that's what you want to sort of look at. And sometimes you can exploit that too. It's an interesting strategy to exploit that. So that's what I want to talk about here in terms of determining the reputation of a PhD program. What you want to do, you want to look at many different factors. Obviously do the rational choice way. Highly recommend it. It's big life choice. You can look at some of my other videos where I talk about this kind of thing. But as well, if you need to, personal recommendations from people that you really trust, as well as whether you find their interests, the research interests really cool, and you resonate with those particular individuals. And so give me a thumbs up if you like this video. Do subscribe to the YouTube channel. I do appreciate it. Take care. And have a wonderful day. Bye.